Homage to the Aratri Jews. Thus I have heard at one time the present one was dwelling in Rajagriha on vast Lotus mountain, together in one method with the great assembly of monks and the great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time the present one was absorbed in the concentration of countless aspects of phenomena called profound illumination. At that time also Superior Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva of the great being, was looking fervently at the practices of profound perfection of wisdom, fervently looking at the emptiness and inherent existence of the five aggregates also. And through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said to the Superior Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva of the great being, how is the son of the lineage trained who wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection of wisdom? As he spoke, the Superior Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva of the great being, replied to the Venerable Shariputra as follows. Shariputra, whatever son of the lineage who wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection of wisdom, should perfectly like this, subsequently looking perfectly and correctly at the emptiness and inherent existence of the five aggregates also. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. Likewise, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are merely empty, having no characteristics. They do not produce and do not cease. They have no defilement, no separation from defilement. They have no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no tactile object, no phenomenon. There is no I element, so forth, no mind element, no element of consciousness. There is no ignorance, no exhaustion of ignorance, so forth, no exhaustion of aging and death. Likewise, there is no suffering, origin, cessation, or path. No exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there is no attainment, all the suffers rely on the body, perfection of wisdom. The minds have no obstructions and no fear. Passing utterly beyond perversity, they attain the final state beyond sorrow. Also, all the Buddhas who perfectly reside in 3 times, relying upon the perfection of wisdom, become manifest and complete Buddhists in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the equal to the unequal mantra, the mantra that clearly pacifies all sufferings, and singles not false, between no mystery. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is proclaimed. Hayata, hate, hate, para, parasangate, bodhi, soha. Shariputra, Bodhisattva, great needs to train the profound perfection of wisdom like this. And the Blessed One rose from that concentration and said the superior Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva, the great need, it is so well. The good of the Son of Lineage, it is like that. Since it is like that, just as you have revealed, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced in that way, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One has said this, the Venerable Shariputra, the superior Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva, the great being, guides him with his disciples, as well as worldly being gods, humans, demigods, and spirits, to delight in higher grace. Choden
Retaliation, emptiness,
friendship Sangye Drupa. Please listen by adjusting your conduct and motivation, thinking for the sake of all the mother sentient beings who are equal to the extent of space. I must, by any means, achieve the precious state of full and complete peerless awakening. And for that reason, I'm going to listen to these Buddha teachings. As for the Dharma that is going to be taught, it's the 8 verses of mind training by Lampa, and for that, the meaning of the expression lojong, when we say lojong, mind training, what that implies is a way of increasing one's bodhicitta or awakening mind more and more through the practices of equalizing and exchanging self and others and dominating teaching and living. And when we say lojong, mind training, what that means, the connotation of those of that word is, that expression is, for the training, it's to do with training one's mind in all of the qualities, or bringing all of the qualities to their culmination, to their completion. And when we say mind training, so this implies that we're talking about a technique for increasing the power of the mind and bringing its qualities to completion, to their culmination. And this is the same really as the expression semke, or which is translated in English as mind generation usually. So the generation there has the connotation of making the mind very vast. So when we say mind generation, or mind development, we could say, or mind increase, the increase of the mind of, which is only thinking of oneself, which is only capable of thinking of oneself, is like a very narrow mind, a very small mind. And so that, in comparison to that, thinking of all sentient beings, the mind becomes very vast, so it increases or develops in that sense. And also because of being focused on the achievement of a very immense goal, the goal of Buddhahood. So from that point of view, also the mind that's aspiring to that is a mind which is very vast, so which is greatly increased. And as we were saying yesterday, first of all, we need to do the practices for accumulating merit and purifying the obscurations and so forth. And since this is a Mahayana practice, this mind training practice is a Mahayana practice, therefore we need to train our minds in the practices and meditations of the person of small capability and middling capability. by reflecting on how cyclic existence or samsara is something that you can't count on at all. All of the pleasures and wonders of cyclic existence are deceptive. And then turning one's mind not simply towards one's own personal liberation, but by thinking of all sentient beings, turning one's mind towards towards liberating them and achieving enlightenment for their sake. And then on that basis one would proceed to practice the mind training, the lojong. And for this, what we need to do is think about how all sentient beings, oneself and others, are absolutely equal in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. And because we are all equal in that way, then there is no reason to cherish oneself and to discard others, because of the fact that we're equal in this way. And so just like our own suffering needs to be eliminated, brought an end to, likewise all others, all sentient beings who also want to be free of suffering, their suffering also needs to be eliminated. So thinking others' suffering is experienced by others, and I don't need to pay any attention to that, I don't need to concern myself with that, is the way of thinking of the self-cherishing mind. So here instead we're talking about cherishing others, by recognizing, for example, that all of the whole collection of marvelous qualities of Buddhahood come from the sentient beings. They're all achieved through depending upon the sentient beings. So this is, for this reason, we need to cherish other sentient beings, other living beings. And so, as we saw in verse 2, where it says, whenever I'm in the company of others and so forth, that verse there, this is a verse which is contains the practice, the idea of seeing oneself as the lowest of all. And so actually here in this verse we have the practice of or the meditation on the various faults of the self-cherishing mind. And so what are the faults of the self-cherishing mind? So we can see this from the Bodhisattva-chara. There's one particular verse there which talks about the cherishing of the self, which the way it's phrased, it could in certain circumstances refer to the self-grasping mind, but here it refers to the self-cherishing mind. So this self-cherishing mind is right there inside us, and it's our worst enemy. And that self-cherishing mind is the source of all different experiences of suffering. then, we need to reflect on all of the various qualities of cherishing others in order to develop the mind that takes care, that cherishes others more than oneself, and think about the faults of the self-cherishing mind, and in this way stop the mind that considers oneself to be the main one, the most, the principal one, the most important one. And then, if we practice on this basis without checking our mind, then it's quite possible that what we're doing, while it might seem to be a Dharma practice, is not really a Dharma practice. And so we need to be very careful in checking our mind in all circumstances, because if, for example, there's another person that we denigrate or scorn in some way, and that person happens to be a bodhisattva, then this would be a really heavy negativity, something that would be very harmful for oneself and others. So it's important in all circumstances to check one's mind, and so here this implies the need to practice conscientiousness, conscientiousness, and alertness, or vigilance, which checks the mind, checks the mind, kind of like quality control, checking the mind. And so there are actually separate chapters within the Bodhisattva Charavatara which are devoted to explaining the practice of conscientiousness and vigilance. So we can learn from those. And then in the fourth, if you look at the fourth verse, which we went through yesterday, this is talking about the attitude of regarding a person who's really most in the most pathetic and wretched situation, who others discard and neglect, to have the attitude towards that person like having found like a treasury of jewels. So it's a bodhisattva practice to particularly try to help those who are in the most weakest and poorest kind of situation. So in fact, if we had two people who needed our help, if it was possible, then one would try to help both of them, to give both of them what they need. But if it's not possible to help both, then if there's one of the two which is in a more pitiful and in a more needy condition, then it wouldn't be a fault to leave the one whose needs are less and to help the one whose needs are more. So in this way, the Bodhisattva focuses on really being of the most benefit to those who are in the poorest and most wretched situation. Then in verse 5, where it says, when out of envy others mistreat me with abuse, insults, or the like, I shall accept defeat and offer the victory to others. There, sort of Bodhisattva is a very, like a very powerful being in the sense that if you help a Bodhisattva, because the Bodhisattva is dedicated to helping all sentient beings, when you do something to help a Bodhisattva, then it's you create a huge amount of merit, whereas on the other hand, if you harm them in any way, then there's a great, this is a really heavy negative thing to do. And so, like for example, becoming, if we get jealous and out of jealousy criticize and scorn a bodhisattva, then there is there's a risk of creating a huge amount of negativity in that case, and therefore the advice here is to take the loss upon oneself and give the victory to the others. It's completely, wrong. It's a mistake to trade criticisms and so forth. So, in fact, in the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, it mentions that that just one moment of anger can destroy 100 eons of merit that's been created by practicing giving and so forth. So this is in the case of where the object of your anger is a bodhisattva. So one moment of anger towards or harm or anger towards a bodhisattva would be worse than taking the eyes out of all of the sentient beings in the world, because of the fact that the bodhisattva is such a powerful object, being dedicated to caring for all sentient beings. And now we are not able to judge who is a bodhisattva or not. So then, not knowing who is a bodhisattva and who isn't, is quite possible that amongst the people we meet there could be an emanation of a bodhisattva. And in that case, if we were to criticize that person, it would be a hugely negative thing. There's an analogy for understanding how it is that there can be, amongst the people we meet there could be a bodhisattva, but we're not nevertheless aware of it, which is the analogy of a pit of ashes, of burning coals covered with ash. So when you look at it, you can't see that there are the hot coals on there. You can just see the ashes. So then you might walk on it. And when you walk on it, then you burn your feet. So the ashes are like the ordinary appearance of beings, and the fire that's actually under those ashes would be like the example for the bodhisattva. So therefore, becoming jealous with others and criticizing them and so on, this is really something to avoid. There's no. It's said that there is the mind of ill will or malice towards others, and the mind of anger. There's like no sort of negative mind like them, because of the fact that they're the complete opposite of the mind of compassion. And also jealousy is also really harmful for how bodhisattva practice, not wanting others to experience happiness. And then miserliness, which is the opposite of giving. So we've committed ourselves to being of benefit. Somebody who's training the bodhisattva way is committed to giving others, giving them practicing the charity of dharma and so forth towards them, and so the mind of miserliness is very harmful for that. So these are kind of attitudes that we really need to try to avoid. And so, as it says here, to instead take the loss upon oneself and give the victory to others.
그것도 하고 제일 상상서 근데 그게 선호가 지원이나 그런 정도가 되면 되지나 그거 되는 제일 상상인데 그거 되게 제일 좋으면 고가로 뭔가 쇼지가 그래도 좀 그런가 근데 그 제일 중요한이나 신뢰가 받고 계획이 받고 그래서 권한도 이렇게 태다고 내가 지금 공식이 다 판도 되네 다 판도 야구지 주마 야구지 그 상황에서 그 지금이나 정규수님 양면이나 대노위로 정규수님 김바동 먼저 봐 야구지 그걸로 내가 때문에 손질 공부 보고 쇼스 이거마도 내가 그래 반대 때문에 솔직히 저기 됐습니다 반대 때문에 지웠지만 나는 조용히 해서 제가 정규수님 양면 근데 저거는 어떻게 정규수님 양면 얘기를 해야 뭔가 제가 된트림도 대마디에서 이야기 비신이 소대를 얘기하서 근데 제가 좋아하는 어떤 놈을 집어있나 다 대화는 이제 내가 가버리는 거구나 늘 하려고 하지 나는 그래가 진리사 좀 쓰리고 근데 나는 오늘 내가 이제 나오자 그래가 kunjol jago boleh dan menjadikan dan dia berusaha lama di cari dua sedikit aku sama tapi no jadi melapa handolti ini jawab kajian yago 이거나요 또 메타가 나오자 사만도 이거 같은 거 돈 먹을 때 이렇게 찾아요. 이거 좀 좋아하는 거 봐요. 나는 되게 라자 놈들 되겠어. 내가 그래 맞지. 내가 다 봐요. 그저도 또 그저도 봐요. 맞지. 그래서 다 비판다. 이거 좀
Then in verse 6, even if someone whom I have helped or in whom I have placed great hopes mistreats me very unjustly, I will view that person as a true spiritual teacher. So we may have great expectations that somebody is going to help us. We may really have cherish a very strong hope that someone is going to help us. Or we may have helped a person a lot in some way or other. And so when we have that kind of person in our life, then normally if such a person treats us badly, then the normal reaction would think, oh, this person is really bad. But here, in the context of somebody practicing mind training, we see here the advice that rather than reacting in that way, we should see the person as their as our guru, as our spiritual guide, because actually when you help somebody and you hope that you're going to get something in reward, that they're going to help you in some way, then it's actually quite harmful to one's bodhicitta practice. Because really, when a bodhisattva when a bodhisattva helps another person in any way, the reason that they're doing it is for enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, and not with any kind of hope for some kind of reward out of it. And so when we have helped somebody and in return they mistreat us, then they're telling us that it's like they're the guru that's telling us that we've been making a mistake in our way of thinking. And likewise, when we have, not likewise actually. So when we think about hoping that somebody's going to help us, there is an expression, one should have no hopes for help from the sentient beings. Don't expect anything from sentient beings. If we're going to expect anything, expect from literally the deities. What that means is one shouldn't really hope so much from sentient beings, but if we can have hopes from anybody, that anybody is going to help us, then have hopes that the three jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, are going to help us. So when we have like felt great hope that somebody's going to help us, and then they don't, they mistreat us and so on, then we again think of this person as the guru that's telling us you made a mistake thinking that having this kind of like hope that the sentient beings are going to help you. Instead, you should hope that the three jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, are going to help you. Because ordinary beings are like that. They change. Things are impermanent. You might help them, but then they can later become your enemy. They can change. They can become your enemy. Instead of helping you, they might harm you. Whereas when it comes to the three jewels, they're always undeceiving. They'll never let you down. So this is something my own teacher, my own guru, used to say to me: don't hope for anything from the sentient beings. Hope for everything from the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha.
지시는 이제 뭐 나하고 처음에 얘기했더니 몇년 다기로 몇년 다기로 지시는 내가 이미지가 좀 되고 그래서 나왔죠. 좀 명확할 때야 되는 그죠? 제로 지시. 저런 거가 거의 뭐 좋죠. 딱 수업 생각해서 뭐가 지금 소치고 그래서 내가 논에 될 것 같아요. 나와야 될 수밖에 없죠. 이게 밖에 제로 지시. 그때 얘기는 여기다가 그가 셀 야, 신이 제대로 이거 야는 보러는 되는 그 보러는 되는 시험이 주지. 다 된다고 뭐 이거 또 비키려 뭐.
In this way, then the bodhisattva, the way the bodhisattva practices is, if they are treated badly in this way, then they see the person as their guru, who is encouraging them to practice virtue, and instead, so instead of feeling any kind of like ill will towards the person who's mistreated them in this way, instead they have they try to help such a person. So there's a story in the Jataka tales of one time when the Buddha was on the path training as a bodhisattva. Then he was born as this wild animal in the forest called Ruru. So the creature he was born as was called Ruru. And one time there was a person who was being carried along in the river, which was running very fiercely, and he was crying out for help. And so this Buddha, who was a bodhisattva at that time, training on the path, this Ruru, went to help him. And because he had helped him, then the person said, since you helped me, so what is there that I can do to help you? And the bodhisattva said, you don't need to give me anything. You don't need to help me in any way, but just simply don't tell anybody that I'm here. And so later on, the queen in that country, who had very reliable dreams, had a dream about this Ruru, and so she told the king, and the king knew that you could always trust her dreams, so he knew that there must be such a creature, and wanted to find out where it was. And so he advertised it to people that anybody that could show him this creature, take him to this creature, would be given a reward. And so this person who the bodhisattva, the Ruru, had helped, initially did have the intention not to tell anybody, but then when he heard about the reward, he went to the king and told him that he knew where the creature was and that he could take him there. So he took the king there, and when the king said, where is he? Then he pointed to where the Ruru was, to say that's where he is, and this caused his arm to fall off. So because of the fact that the bodhisattva is such a powerful object, so this is what happened. He didn't know that he didn't know that he was a bodhisattva. The king didn't know he was a bodhisattva, and was about to fire an arrow at him to be able to capture him. And the bodhisattva said, please don't do that. You don't need to do that. Who is it that told you that I was here? And the king said, pointed to the person who brought them there, and said that was who brought him there. And the bodhisattva said that that when you help somebody, then it's really very wrong to repay the help by mistreating them. And so the Bodhisattva, the Ruru, explained the story, and then the king became very upset and wanted to shoot this person. And so the Bodhisattva said, no, please don't do that. Please don't harm him. Rather, give him the reward that was promised to him. So in other words, instead of retaliating to this harm that had been done to him by somebody that he'd helped, he wanted to help them. So the teaching here and the advice here is to try to practice in that way. So subsequent to this, then the king took the creature to his palace and like really honored him and venerated, putting him on a throne and so forth. And there are many other such stories in the Jatakas tales. And so this is helping somebody, wanting to help somebody who's harmed them is a bodhisattva practice, and it's something that we must pray to be able to do in the future. So we practice according to our level as much as we can, and practices like this, which we're not able to do at the moment, then we can pray to be able to do in the future. Then verse 7 says, in brief, directly or indirectly, I will offer help and happiness to all my mothers and secretly take upon myself all their hurt and suffering. What this means is that those 6 verses, those first 6 verses, are all aimed at establishing the practice of taking and giving. So when it says, in brief, what that means is to, let's say, in brief, like just to summarize the practices that have been explained in the first 6 verses, then this is how to do the taking and giving. So in brief, where we can, when it says directly and directly or indirectly, so directly where, you know, when you can actually see when you can actually see the others that you can help, you know, directly, then you help them, and others, you know, even when you're not able to see, then you help them indirectly. And when it says help and happiness, help refers to the short-term help and benefit, and then happiness refers to the ultimate or long-term benefit. So this is talking about giving them the short-term benefit and the long-term happiness, giving that to all the sentient beings, either directly or indirectly, because all of the sentient beings have been our mother countless times in our beginningless lives in psychic existence, and are exactly the same as the mother of this life. And then it also says to secretly take upon myself all their hurt and suffering. So this is talking about taking upon all of their physical pain, and also taking on all of their mental suffering and unhappiness, taking it all upon ourselves. And so the source for this, as I mentioned the other day, when Sharawa was asked what's the source of this teaching, he said it's the teaching. It comes from the teachings of Nagarjuna, where he says, may all of their suffering and may all their suffering and negativities ripen on me, and may all of my happiness and virtue ripen on them. Therefore, we have in this way that the practice of equalizing and exchanging self and others, generating bodhicitta by equalizing and exchanging self and others. And this is said here to be practiced secretly. You see in verse 7 it says, and secretly take upon myself all their hurt and suffering. And the reason that it is to be practiced secretly is because it's a practice which simply doesn't fit the minds of, it just doesn't work in the minds of the hearers and solitary realizers, and not only them, but even certain bodhisattvas whose faculties are duller or weaker, whose minds are not so sharp, it also just doesn't, in a sense, fit into their minds either. And so it's just like it says in the Bodhisattva Charavatar, Samvidhamma Chivachasuti, the secret instruction should be cherished. It's saying the same thing there. So when we talk about equalizing and exchanging self and others, what this means is that you think about the drawbacks of cherishing oneself and all of the benefits of cherishing others, and based upon that you exchange self and others. And it doesn't mean, when we say exchange self and others, it doesn't mean I have to become others and others become me, or and so forth. It doesn't mean that. What it means is that up until now we've cherished and cared for ourselves very strongly and had a tendency to neglect and discard others. So now instead, having understood that to think like that regarding oneself, cherishing oneself so strongly, is something which is not good, so you make the decision instead of cherishing myself, caring for myself so strongly, I'm going to care for others. And having seen that it's wrong to neglect others and discard others, you make the decision instead of discarding others, which I've been doing up until now. Instead I'm going to discard and neglect myself. So equalizing and exchanging self and others means that.
있어야지 일단 진단 잡아서야 되고 있거든요. 진단은 법지에 이제 법 시행 법 중요한 시행 딱 보면 되기로 보고 되기로 되니까 주 법지지 법지지에 이제 같은 법을 해서 시행인데 이 법문을 해서 자를 법문을 쓴다. 그냥 다 내가 뒤지고 있지 않아요. 그래서 대야 나노 생각해서 그거 내가 아마 다 되려고는 공부 연습도 너무 맞사고 그래서 이제 아니다 그지 맞아서 거기다 너무 그런 거라니까 너무 공부 근데 약간 건 누러지게 가라 아마 템바가 템비고 거기다 맞아 거기는 템비고 나면 거지 않나요? 하면 건 그게 공격이 그래서 사전은 너네가 누러지게 거는 너는 교생법적으로 이제 그러니까 항상 그런 것이 신지는 주시. 점점 하면 그래서 또 여러 우리가 신은 지가 있나 연주받아 같이 그 좋아하는 지가 있나 누구는 신고 성사 연주받아 같이 같은데 그지. 공공해지는 지에는 대접받아 하게. 대접받아 하는 인대지를 콘텐츠에서 풀린 인대만 다른 그 짜고 농업을 농업에 기고 있다는 얘기 생각해요. 생각은 일단 안일을 좀 나가서 깨지 뭐야 맞다는 매직은 뭐야 고도 짜 고도고는 레바 그래서 야 동지 동안 농이 돼야 돼 공개는 좀 내가 간다서 제가 그래서 제가 내가 많이 보고 있어요. 인간에게 자 공개 땅에 너무 많이 보고 있어요. 나한테 고민해서 그때 공개나 남간 가니까 김반나 좋아할 줄 알지. 다들 요번에 쟁기가 가지고 김반나 좋아할 줄 알지. 그때 뒤에 걸어 되게 아파. 마지막 김반 소리를 생긴 공부는 거의 공개나 김반이 같이 처음으로 이제나 말 걸지 않는 동안들이 공부를 하게 공부를 여기서 편집 뒤에 거 좋아하시고 노래를 내는데 대마다를 그런 거 봐서 그래서
So here with the practice of equalizing and exchanging self and others, which means taking the suffering of others on oneself and giving them one's happiness. So when seeing the others experiencing suffering, then practicing the thought, giving rise to the, in other words, thinking to oneself, may this suffering ripen on me. And when one is experiencing happiness, thinking, I don't need this, giving it to others. So there are various sources for this practice in the sutras. like for example, there's the story of the son of the daughter of Zhao, and also the navigator or captain, the great compassionate one. So he was. This is a story of the Buddha in before becoming enlightened, being born in a hell realm, and he was quite strong, and he along with a companion who was a lot weaker, they were pulling this cart, and on the burning hot iron ground, and in order to make them suffer. So he was quite he was strong, and his companion was weak and was not able to pull properly. So the hell guards were beating him in various ways. And when the Buddha, who was in the same continuum as when that hell being was in the same continuity as the Buddha, saw that, then he said, "Please put the rope on me. I'll pull for both of us." And so, although in general, if you're born in one of the hell realms, then you simply have to remain there, suffering until the karma is used up. But here, because he was practicing taking and giving, when he said that, then the guardian, the hell guardian, said, "Who are you to practice compassion?" Something like that, and hit him with a hammer. And when he hit him with the hammer, then he died, and that hell life came to an end. So in general, if you're in one of the hell realms, then simply being hit by a hammer is not something that would bring your life to an end. But here, because of the strength of his compassion and his practice of taking and giving, that life in the hell realm came to an end. And then the story of the daughter of Zhao. So Zhao was the name of the family, and in that family, a son had been born but had died. Had died, and when very young. But when they had daughters, the daughters lived. And so when a son was born, again, they called him the daughter of Zhao, so referred to him as the daughter of Zhao, and in that way he was able to live. So this person who's referred to as the daughter of Zhao was actually the Buddha while practicing on the path. And so when he became a little older, his father wasn't there, and he wanted to earn his living in the same way as his father. So he wanted to go out onto the ocean to gather jewels. And when he talked with his mother about this, then she didn't want him to go. She wanted him to stay behind and take care of the household and so on. And so she wouldn't give her permission to him to go, and laid down with her head at the doorway to stop him from leaving. But despite the fact that she did that, he stepped on her head and went off and to get the jewels. And so he was on the ocean, traveling with others in a ship, and the ship was wrecked, and everybody ended up in the water. And he was able to hold on to a piece of wood, which eventually carried him to the shore of an island. And so when he got so after he had become freed of this of that that dangerous situation in that way, eventually he came across this steel house, and there was a great deal of crying that he'd hear, like the crying of pain. And he went to look to see what was happening. And he saw that there was a person seated inside the house with an iron wheel turning on his head and like cutting up his brains. And so he asked, what was it that you did to deserve this? And he said, this is the ripening result of having stepped on my mother's head. And so then he thought to himself, well, I also did that, and so maybe the same thing is going to happen to me. He was wondering. And then while he was thinking that, then there was a voice in the space that said, let the one who has been tied up be freed, and let the one who is not tied up, may the wheel go to that one. And so he found himself bound in this seat with the wheel coming down on his head and cutting up his brains and so on. And he thought, there must be many people who have done this, who have done the same kind of thing that I did to make this happen to me. And so may my suffering be like serve instead of their suffering. May it substitute for the suffering, for them suffering, so they don't need to suffer. And when he thought that, then immediately the wheel lifted off him, and he was freed of that suffering. And so this was due to his practice of taking and giving. So this is also a source for the taking and giving practice. In the Guide for Bodhisattva's Way of Life, Shantideva actually refers to this in one of his verses, this story of the daughter of Zhao, where he says that if the merit from wanting to take upon oneself all of the suffering of this kind of brain suffering or head suffering, if the wish to take on all of that suffering alone brings such infinite merit, such great merit that birth in that hell realm experience could be brought to an end, then what need is there to mention the benefits, the immeasurable benefits that there will be from thinking of all sentient beings, the limitless, infinite sentient beings, and wanting to take on all of their immeasurable sufferings. So there's no need to mention the great benefits that would follow from that. And because so here you can see in this verse it says, I will secretly take upon myself all their hurt and suffering. So it's actually a practice which is much vaster than the mind wanting to simply take on all of the suffering of the head, like pain in the head of all the sentient beings, wanting to take on all of the suffering of all sentient beings.
嘛，那一心切干嘛去了？空着，那么久，那个么，那么久了，那就觉得，当然讲就讲了，第一个，这个，第二个，这个那么用这个，我考虑人还在这，这个，对象也对他干嘛这个什么，你这个让自己修行的，这个方面，我也会讲的，这个讲明的话呢，这那个查什么，这个你一个人去的，这那个，这修行就是这样，这个。因为他们方面会讲多一点，那大家也都从那边都是有的，现在呢，就觉得他拍的嘛，这是共同经济也受创动的嘛，因为那就能够给我们保护下来，你这有吧？当然没这个不个这。每个人住在的不够久的这个影响，真的，这个每个人住在人不要自己的，但是这样的，真的，你要做就培养这个，建立说了都是那种，这个这个这个当然这个，这个面是他的什么？当然这个也我给你放在这里，有人呢，我给自己有，也是就算是不是往北些，反正。
不是的，这个嘛，可能，
这什么光芒的，你这用，你这用这个呢？当然没这个多的。没同感的人嘛，
这还没长没的这就嘛。
말해. 네가 스테이터스라.
그래서. 디니 필요.
근데 이제 양이 너무 많아. 근데 매일 그렇다. 이날 때 보고 좋은지 제고 고쳐서 되게 있어. 근데 방에 좀 제대로 좋았다 민에도 좀 나타가 이제 이해할 수 있고. 단단히 내가 연애도 공 이런 데에서 뭐 제일 공이 아주 연애도 없는 거
And as we heard previously about Geshe Chekawa, so he practiced mind training. And within that, he practiced taking and giving. And when he taught others, there were many people who had been fallen ill with leprosy, which was regarded as a disease that one couldn't recover from. So people in that situation, feeling that they can't recover from the illness, their compassion becomes stronger, and then based upon that, if they're taught how to practice taking giving and they engage in that practice, then there are many accounts of people who were able to recover from that illness, and it was for that reason that it was referred to as the leprosy practice, taking giving, the mind training, and that they were regarded as the leprosy dharma, or the leprosy practice. And so now it seems that if you really practice taking giving Donglen sincerely, really from the heart, then you're able to cure various illnesses. So when you're in that kind of situation where you have a great illness, it seems that the self-cherishing mind becomes self-cherishing mind becomes weaker as you feel that there's nothing that you can do, and then based on that, practice the Tonglen sincerely, then it is possible to cure various illnesses. And in fact, there's also the story of Geloma Pamo, who's connected with the Nyungne practice. So she had leprosy, and so she thought that, now I've been, cast out of the ranks of human beings, practically not being regarded as a human being anymore. She thought to herself, I must use this situation, I must make it worthwhile. And so she practiced Chenrezig, making requests to Chenrezig, and eventually received a vision of Chenrezig. And she's now when we do the Nyungne practice, then within that there's a point where we're in front of we practice in front of Geloma Pamo, who makes requests to Chenrezig on our behalf. So this was all due to her practice of the Nyungne, and so practice the taking and giving Donglen, and so practicing Donglen is something which is useful for oneself and also useful for others. When a person is practicing taking and giving strongly and sincerely, then it's beneficial for the land that they're living in. The happiness and the happiness of that area increases.
오늘 하고 있잖아. 이거 인다 간게. 너가 소원을 지금 뭐 있어. 남아이시 당근이 뭐 좀 정말 대주지 같이 이게 좋게 자세히 나서 그게 거기에 대한 어떤 거 그리고 다시 조회는 다 자서 이제 나한테 그런 팀이 벌써 보면 여기도 좀 보면 그렇게 나오고 내가 언제지 좀 소리 올라 다 자서 내가 또 어디서 이제 눈에 들어오는 게 오늘 그런 진지 매가지 예진이 쇼트 모여나 가는 세비한 거지 동안 그런 진지 내가 너무 많았지 그런 진지 이거 좋아하네 내가 지금 그게 있나 저는 또 어디서 더 먹고 그랬대 영상도 다 하면
So if you really practice taking and giving well, then you can recover from illnesses. And in fact, there is something that Choden Rinpoche mentioned is that when Lama Yeshe was still with us, he had been practicing Hayagriva, and he had this had the Torma, and one of his students was ill, and so he gave him some pills made from this Torma, and told him to practice Donglen, taking and giving, and through that his student recovered. And so this kind of result can, like recovering from illness, can happen in the case where you're able to actually practice without self-cherishing and only have the other cherishing mind. If on the other hand you're not able to let go of that self-cherishing mind, so that you're practicing taking and giving, sort of like acting out the practice of taking and giving while still having the self-cherishing mind, then you would accumulate a great deal of merit, but it's difficult to see that it would be so effective as to make you recover from an illness like that.
내야 돼. 나 거기 야가 더 내진지 쇼팅을 요인다. 라운드 잡고 해요. 근데 너무 많이 오면 있나? 뭐 근데 야 좋은 거는 뭐 내리 거는 라운드 잡고. 근데 라운드 간다 잡는 것입니다. 나다 라운드가 쇼게 나들이거든. 그럼 이거 그게 나다 돌래. 이거 그게 나 그래서 원인이 나서 돌린다. 대대 너 정서나 너 정말 이거 정말 그냥 갈래가 여러분 같이 간다로 소리 그렇게 이제는 그런 게 너가 그런 게 있네 그거 좀 이제 잡네. 그래도 갈래가 좀 그러니까 하다 얘기하는데 그런 게 더 이제 또 뭐. 근데 그 전에 뭐 제대로 하네. 인지를 봐서도 내 봐. 장르를 봐서도 또 하죠. 인지해야 돼. 세계 동안 그런 사람들. 근데 동안에 그런 사람들 되게 좋아하네. 이 동안 내가 요한다 너가 이루 수도 내가 동안에 내가 내가 그래서 내가 때 너가 되게 전에 되게 좋아요. 나와 봐. 그래서 또 되게 뭐 같이다. 근데 얘가 어떤 거 내가 그런 말을 생각했다. 그런 말을 하면 그동안 어떻게 했나? 다 생계 관계 세계적인 뭔가 공연을 볼 때, 나한테 있는 걸 쉬우고 상관없이, 우리가 릴리시를 가나, 나이는 사냥은 자식이고, 강야는 자과기를 그러다가 뒤에서는 우리가 내정 공원을 볼때요, 서울에 런진들이 되는데, 런진들이 타거나 무슨 단 내야 되는 잠을 먹어. 써도 좀 떠나서. 잠을 먹어 가려서는 현재 배워도 되나 하면 그 배워도 되나 하면 로디 통에 배워 봐도. 근데 내야 되니까 이제 동안 내 말이고. 배워야 된다고. 내 거는 뭐가지? 배워야 돼. 이렇게 조사하고 대가 그동안 손놈이 그만도 잘 써놓은 사람 근데 내가 반 준비니 내가 전부 잘 써놓은 사람 다 그가 대형 되니까 배우지 않고 이래서 이래서 더 됐고
when
나중에 여보다 늘 동아리 나게 근데 이거 좀 내가 있는데 그들은 해야지 삶을 시작하고 자고 나 대개는 너무 봐 늘도 너무 비싸 우리는 뭐 봐도 대단하게 그동안 저기 밑에 보는 거가 꼬리고 사가지고 영어 대단하게 유의했는데 그런 거 못 받아 이게 와서 거듭 하는 거 없겠지 소리네 그런 건데 과학에서 가지고 봐 나는 이렇게 있었는데 기르신이 한번 해봐 되는 내가 그 주의된 제가 되면 나를 위로는 우리에서 먹고
when practicing taking and giving, then it said the order is to start the practice by taking from oneself. What this means is that if you have no self-cherishing mind, then you don't need to start with yourself. You can immediately start with others. But otherwise, you can start with yourself. What that means is that, for example, in the morning, you could imagine taking your suffering of the afternoon and the rest of the day. And then, having trained in that, then you can imagine taking tomorrow's suffering. And then you can gradually progress to taking the suffering of the following month, the following year, and so on, gradually building up until you take on all of your own suffering. And then, having taken on all of one's own suffering, then somehow supposing that one has overcome the self-cherishing mind in this way, then we can gradually take on the suffering of others. So taking the suffering of others while focusing on compassion, literally focusing on the referent and aspect of compassion. Sorry, not suffering, of compassion, and then giving while focusing on love. So then, compassion is a mind that sees the suffering of others and finds that unbearable, wants to take that, wants to free the others from that suffering. So that's what we're talking about when we say focusing on compassion, take the suffering of others. So out of compassion, you imagine taking the suffering of others. And if you're going to do this gradually, then what you can do is you can do it realm by realm, like starting off with the hell realm. You imagine that you're taking the suffering of the hell realm and giving your virtuous roots. So you can do that one by one, or you can do it in general, like just thinking, may all sentient beings be free of all their suffering, and then based upon that, you imagine you're taking all of their suffering. So in terms of first of all the place, if you're focusing on first on the hell realms, then you imagine taking all of the faults of like the heat of the hell realms, the coldness in the cold hells. So you imagine you're taking all that, and then out of love, which is the mind wanting others to be happy, you imagine you're giving them. So you imagine you're giving them happiness, which means that you're giving to the place, which means so that instead of it being a suffering place, it becomes a very wonderful place, like the pure land, like the pure land of Retaliation or Sukhavati. So you think it's actually become like that, and this is very important. When you're doing this meditation, you think, I've actually taken the suffering of the sentient beings. I've actually made the place like a pure land, and so forth. So you start off with taking all of the faults and so forth of the place. Then you go on to take all of the suffering of the particular body that they have at the moment, because with the body they have at the moment, it's difficult for them to practice. So you take their body and give them one's body. So you're giving them a body which is suitable for practicing. And then thirdly, seeing that their mind as it is so filled up with the mental afflictions means that they're not able to practice. It would be difficult for them to practice, so you take on all of their mental afflictions, all of their sufferings of the mind, and then you give them your virtuous roots, which means your love and your compassion and your bodhicitta, and you think that now they have love, these qualities of love, the qualities of compassion and bodhicitta. And then you also, on that basis, you in your meditation, you act as the spiritual guide who shows them the way and how to, practice all of the points of the path, and you guide them along the path.
다 돈에 건 그러나 소리는 해야 돼. 그래다 좀 통해서 차 너무 끊어서 선제 좀 되게. 내가 좀 이제 소리해. 근데 너 지금 디비전에 대해서 선제 구시 자고 있는데 대내서 좀 대마도 그 선제가 설비 좀 주스마. 맞지? 탐지는 좀 나름대로 배워봐요. 그 감정이 좀 단계가 있는 건데. 그래서 요즘 손재가 많아요. 시들이 뭐 시들 참는 뭐 그렇게 맞으면 네. 근데 뒤에 이게 많이 봤는데 이게 뭐지 물어봤지. 또 이 손재가 어떻게 되는지. 그러니까 손재가 하나 맞도 활동 있는 거 제일 이유는 바로 그 이유가 너가 가는 너는 뇌대 바로 그 세금 너가 있나 세금이 너가 좀 바로 그 내가 너가 있나 내가 하나는 바로 그 이유가 일단 너가 장래에 대한 진심이야 난 먼저 봐야 되는 다 손님이 봐
Then, when taking and giving, as far as taking is concerned, you can practice taking regarding all beings apart from the Buddhas, because when we're taking suffering and the cause of suffering and so on, various faults. But a fully enlightened being, a Buddha, is free of all faults and has all qualities, so there's no taking there. And in the case of one's spiritual guide, or spiritual master, since we need to practice recognizing or perceiving them as a fully enlightened being, so also you don't take there either. But otherwise, all other beings, even the bodhisattvas on the 10th ground, so everybody on the 10th bodhisattva ground downwards, they all have some kind of fault, so you can practice taking the faults. Even those bodhisattvas who are just about to achieve enlightenment, since they're not yet enlightened, they're just about to achieve enlightenment, so they still have these very subtle obscurations which they haven't yet been able to eliminate. So imagine taking those, and you can imagine giving them the antidote. So that when it comes to giving, unlike with taking, you can give to all. You can give to all the sentient beings, including all of the bodhisattvas on the 10 grounds, but you can also give, which means the same here as offering, to the Buddhas and also to one's gurus, the spiritual guides. And so then when you give to them, then that you think that sort of like increases their holy activities and deeds for the sentient beings. And then we talk of giving the body, one's resources, and roots of virtue. So when how to practice giving one's body, it's just like it says in the Buddhavatar, the Guide for a Sattva's Way of Life. The body, you imagine your body becomes like a wish-fulfilling body. In other words, which gives the sentient beings all that they might want. So it's like food for those who need food. It's like warmth for those who need warmth, and so forth. And then giving the one's resources or possessions. This is like the generosity or the charity of what we call it, the material charity, giving material things to others. So there, just like it says in this text, directly or indirectly, in brief, directly or indirectly, I will offer help and happiness to all my mothers. So, depending, whichever is relevant, you can either give directly when that's possible. When it's not possible to give directly, then you help and you give indirectly.
That is. My note is on the sun and the other member shows it's on the energy. Not on any mother, the above company, not long job. On and on to the truth. Oh, I got young, is a part of. So, over the younger. And that's the dagger. We should be told that. Really complain enough. But, with the ground and don't move back. Oh, the one that I'm not able to check my. No one goes in the phone, which is the thing.
And then, as it says in the text, I will secretly I will take for myself all their hurt and suffering. So then, if you practice well, if your practice is going well, then you can combine the taking and giving with the breath, so that when you're breathing in, you think that you're taking on the suffering and so forth of others. When you're breathing out, you're practicing giving. And in this way, since as long as you're alive, then you're going to be breathing, then your whole life can be a practice of taking and giving. So even if one doesn't, only practice that, then this is a very powerful practice to do, and something to gain familiarity with.
가와 내가 먼저 내가 거요 내가 좀 나도 마지막에 또 상정좀 델리지게 거기 또 거요 말아 그리고 봐야지 생기 또 이제 시행해 그래서 취지가 오는 거야 일단 델리지인데 던져주면 좋아 나도 그런 거 있을까 보이는데 아니 취지 되게 마법질 거예요.
Then we have verse 8. I will learn to keep all these practices untainted by thoughts of the 8 worldly concerns. May I recognize all things as illusions and without attachment, gain free from bondage. So this talks about the 8 worldly concerns. We often call the 8 worldly dharmas. And whatever we do, if it's what does it say? Untainted. So if it's tainted by the 8 worldly dharmas, then it's not going to be pure dharma. So what are these 8 worldly dharmas? These are listed in a verse by Nagarjuna, in a verse of advice to his friend the King Deju, and so he refers to him as Jiten Khenpo, like the knower of the world. So then he mentions what the 8 worldly dharmas are. So they are feeling happy to receive to material gain, and unhappy not to receive material gain. Material gain here means like when you're given food, clothing, various resources and so forth. So when you get them, feeling happy. When you don't get them, then being unhappy. And then being happy when praised, and being unhappy when one isn't praised. And like for example, if to hear harsh words, when you're spoken to with harsh words, being unhappy. And so then it mentions also being happy and unhappy. What that means is, like for example, when we feel physically well, then it's only normal in the world. People say, "Oh, this is so good. I feel so well." So feeling happy when or enjoying it when you experience that kind of happiness. And when you don't get it, then being unhappy, not liking that. And then because what we need to the goal, or what we need to feel, is instead of like happy with the one and unhappy with its opposite, feeling somehow either way it doesn't matter. Either way is okay. If one receives receives some kind of material gain, feeling that's okay. If one doesn't, then also feeling that's okay. Then praise and criticism. So here, before it was talking about like hearing something nice like praise. So here, even if you don't hear about it, just the fact that people are saying, oh, he or she is really good, very good in for this and that reason. Then when you know that that's how people are talking about you, then feeling happy about that. When you know that the people are talking badly about you, saying, oh, so-and-so is a really bad person, then feeling unhappy. So instead, having a mind which is equal, whichever of those occurs. So this is the way that the bodhisattva needs to practice. So which otherwise to be involved in these 8 worldly dharmas, feeling happy when you get the material gain and so on, and unhappy when you don't. This is really counter to the bodhisattva's practice. The bodhisattva needs to practice untainted by these 8 worldly concerns, or the 8 worldly dharmas.
그러니까 이거 정말 인양거래에서 양동 관계에서나 인기만으로 좋은데나 이렇게 인기로 좋으나 대화에 고조까지 위해서 이거 좀 저거 기만대로 소소 Dumai Chumayana, I read it, Dumai Chumayana, Dumai Jango Kambasho, laying in the jewel there, say, he's a Dumai where the Jango Kando shows. Dumai Chumayana, did it to do it, there are Chumayana, who you got it, put your soul, some more. That for me, no one can do that. Now, never Junior, to be a now, don't get no dinner. Now, never Junior, I told her, Toba in that dog. Toba Chumayana, they are not just a day. They never told me enough, or don't regret it. They never got those
The way to equalize these eight is by, for example, thinking when things are going well, you think that this is okay, this is the result of my virtue, and so then thinking this is therefore due to the kindness of the three jewels, creating merit by offering to the three jewels. And then when suffering, when things are going badly, thinking that this also is okay, and thinking in this way may the ocean of suffering be completely dried up. May all of the negativities and obscurations become completely non-existent. So in other words, whichever arises, feeling that it's okay and being able to use the situation. So then, likewise, it's mentioned in the Bodhisattva that, or it advises there to think if one is criticized, to think this is okay, there are other people that praise me, and when we're praised, thinking that's also nothing so amazing, there are other people that criticize me, and to recognize that actually when one is praised, then there's a risk of them becoming proud and so forth, for various mental afflictions to arise, and to think that it's actually better when you're criticized because then you have, you're using up your negative karma and so forth.
노아다도 좋아도 내가 다 돼요. 노아다도 좋아요. 아마 그런 매화 그래서 매화 말해. 아, 그 뭐지? 뭐 동료래. 대가는 봤다 와서 나도 그래 그런 기분을 줬다. 요즘 뭐 좋았어. 요즘 뭐 좋았는데 늘 봤다. 나 되게 좋네. 나 동시 좀 머리. 얘는 딴 주마다 좋아해. 주마다 요즘 뭐 좋아했니? 나는 다른 사람 때문에 동료를 할 때 나한테 옛날 거는 말도 좋대. 내가 항상 주의 탐지 유명하다고 시작하지. 오늘 엄마들이 두도 봐도 자기가 나도 봤다고 엄마들 동네 주가 좀 내도 너 지금도 보니까 나다 당연히 내가 그랬으나 너희 이제 엄마 해야 돼. 당연히도 많이 나와서 너희 농아 잡기 너희 해서 이제 되게 많다 왔습니다. 근데 주든지 유명하다고 시작하지. 주의 공을 주든지 제일 중요한 해도쇼, 제일 중요한 해도쇼, 어떻게 님을 하겠습니다. 제일 중요한 그거 쇼스나 내도 있습니다. 제마다 제마다 그거 쇼. 제일 중요한 해도쇼, 정말 시간이니까 다 내만 마지막에 제마다 그거 쇼.显明清华的哲学，显明清华的哲学，这个马上认同的。谈到显明清华山呢，人们这个显法的是有的，显明清华山呢，人们的显法来不及，很清华的可怕。你看人这个清华的初中就好了，人这个早就，各位早就他把都，那给他主动的我们的。
Then the last two lines where it says, may I recognize all things as like illusions and without attachment, gain freedom from bondage. So here, the practices that have preceded this, practicing love, compassion, taking and giving and so forth, these are all included within the collection of merit. When we talk about the two collections, the collection of merit and the collection of exalted wisdom, it's included in the collection of, those practices are included in the collection of merit. Or when we talk about the combination of method and wisdom, so those practices are included within method. So now, having talked about the collection of merit, or the method side, now it's talking about the wisdom side. And in fact it's said that whatever wholesome or virtuous practice we do, it needs to be sealed with the reflection on emptiness, with the understanding of emptiness. And when you do that, when you have that kind of combination of practicing virtue in combination with the understanding of emptiness, then you're easily able to complete the two collections. Now when it says, may I recognize all these things as like illusions. So now, in order to be able to have things appearing to you like illusions, then first of all you need to have the understanding of emptiness. So the analogy of the illusion is means that when a magician conjures up illusions then of various things like horses and elephants and so on, then what you see seems to be an actual horse and elephant and so forth. But even though it appears in that way, there's no actual horse and elephant and so forth. So just like that, things appear to us like they exist from their own side. It seems like there's a real object there existing from its own side, whereas in fact they don't exist from their own side, in the way that they appear. And then the example that's given is of an illusion. So, for example, when we think of our something, like physical form, like our own form aggregate, in other words, our own physical body, if somebody asks, what do you mean when you say its form, or it's the body, and so forth, or like a flower, then you say, well, you can see it's a flower. So we have this idea that the thing is just from its own side, it's a flower, or from its own side, it's a form, or whatever it might be. Something existing from its own side, not depending upon anything at all. So something which is existing from its own side, independent of anything, is something which is truly existent. That's what it means to when we talk about something being truly existent. So things are in fact empty of that kind of true existence, independent of anything else, and yet at the same time that doesn't mean to say that they don't exist at all. They do exist. They have their own potential and their own capacity, have their own power, and so we can say of anything that it's merely imputed from the side of the mind, depending upon many other factors. So things, that's how they exist. They're not totally non-existent. They exist through being, by being imputed from the side of the mind. And in this way, all phenomena are like illusions. They appear as if they're not depending on anything, and they appear like they're that they don't exist depending upon imputation by the mind, and yet they're actually empty of existing from their own side, independent of the imputation by the mind and so forth. So when you understand that they are in fact empty, and then you see that that despite being empty, they appear to be truly existent, then you can understand actually the way that they appear to be truly existent is just like an illusion. So you're able to think this is just like an illusion. And then it says, may I recognize all things as like illusions, and without attachment gain freedom from bondage. So the way that the Tibetan, there are different versions of the Tibetan text. Sometimes it says without attachment, and then sometimes it says yeah, I'm not quite sure the difference between these two. So anyway, the main point is that the attachment means the grasping at true existence. So it could it could be expressed in either of these two ways. Either without attachment, in other words, without true the grasping at true existence, or from attachment. In other words, you're talking about being liberated from attachment. So then, so then when it says, so without attachment may I gain freedom from bondage, so this is referring to the fact that if you are free of that attachment, in the sense of grasping at true existence, then this is how you gain liberation.
되는 저기 공부지 리오나 소원을 저기 소원을 내가 좋아하는 되는 저기가 소원서
As I mentioned, so in this way I've given finished giving the explanation of the 8 first mind training. As I mentioned at the beginning, what you do at first is practice Guru Yoga with whichever visualization you prefer, and then after the meditation is finished, again you make requests to the Guru, and you do the descending nectar, purifying all of the obscurations, and you feel like you've gained all of the realizations. And if your visualization included many figures, then you think that all of the other figures dissolve into the main one, and that one dissolves into oneself, and one becomes blessed.
조리 있으면 때문에 대단한 가지고 가는 거.
So now I've received this teaching from many of my teachers, and the lineage through which you received this teaching is one that has remained without any kind of decline or degeneration. So then tomorrow there's going to be the long life puja, and so really, you know, when with the long life puja, it contains the practice of it's sort of focused on the idea that the Lama is, you know, about to go to a pure land, and so you're asking the Dakinis not to take him away to the pure land, to go back, you know, and to leave him with us and so on. So this is really not applicable to myself, but nevertheless, it can be useful because of the samaya that we have, because of the connection we have, and so forth. So then, besides that, it also coincides with the, you know, the birthday of His Holiness, and so His Holiness is, you know, like such, is really an amazing being in the world, somebody who goes everywhere and teaching, who takes great care of the environment, who gives advice to many, who goes to many centers of learning, universities and so forth, and teaches. And in fact, we can say that his activities and kindness are superior even to those of the Buddha, because when the Buddha was here in the world, he only taught like in India, in that kind of like a very localized region, and not all over the world. And this is not like a fault of the Buddha. He taught where there were the students. There weren't the students in all over the world for him to teach at that time. So there's no fault. So you know, His Holiness is really an amazing being who, as we know, teaches that that if we want peace in the world, then it comes from the individuals practicing the mind that wants to benefit others, and practicing a good heart. So we can think that when we're doing the long life puja, that it's for the sake of His Holiness's long life. Besides that, besides that, if we think that it's also for Lama Zopa Rinpoche, who is really also quite an amazing and special being in constructing these various holy objects of the, you know, images of the holy body, speech, and mind all around the world, making offerings to the Sangha and so forth in the monasteries, and also teaching all around the world. So if we can think that it's, you know, that we're doing this practice of the long life puja tomorrow, also for Rinpoche to be well, to recover from his illness, and to be able to carry on with his work. And it would also be very good if we think that the long life puja that we're doing tomorrow is for the long life of all of our gurus. This would also be very helpful, very useful. And so please keep this in mind. So we'll just do the Sajitoki, which is on page something. Just after halfway through the book. the Lamrim prayer. We'll do that in English. From my two collections, last estates I have amassed from working with evidence practice for a great length of time, and I become a chief leading Buddha for all those whose minds' wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I have not reached this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all lives unshooting. May I find the best of complete greater paths of the teachings, and may I please all Buddhas by my practice. Choosing skillful beings drawn by strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings with the points of the path as I have discerned them. May I uphold the Buddha's teachings for a very long time, with my heart going out with great compassion, whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread, or once read and mine, may I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted boundless peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time. By even this great path to enlightenment completed through the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their sons, may all human and non-human beings who eliminate adversity and create conducive conditions for practicing the excellent paths never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. May someone may accept their path in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices. May they always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere. Chö ki gyao wo song ga ve chö chö nam ba pa wa ye ge shen ma jie wa dang kyun ge ma lu san wa sho ta dan shen ki lu sun dan da we so ni la ten ne ya wa